Is the assisted dying bill itself dying? Once trumpeted as the signature domestic social reform of Keir Starmer's government, proponents say it's now stuck in a veritable morass of legislative bickering designed not to scrutinise and thus improve the law, but to keep things as they are. We spent a great deal of time on this programme examining the ethics of the reform, so we want to spend a few minutes today looking at the parliamentary process, because Lord Falconer, who's joined us in the studio, is saying that the rarely invoked Parliament Act may be necessary, may be required to force this through. His opponent suggests that could cause a spot of major constitutional bother. Well, we'll hear from Lord Falconer, who's smiling on hearing that in a moment. But first, let's speak to Nikki da Costa, who's a former Director of Legislative Affairs in Number 10. Nikki, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, what do you make of the notion that the Parliament Act may be invoked here?
I do think it's extraordinary. We have complex, sensitive legislation, which is about how doctors end the lives of very vulnerable patients. And it's full of holes. 5 rural colleges can't support it. And you've got numerous external organisations saying there are problems, and 3 select committee reports in the Lords saying there's dangers. Now, for 5 months, Lord Falconer has not engaged with the problem. So we've got a problem almost of Lord Falconer's making. And 10 days ago, he said, "Oh, I must change my ways," but nothing's happened. So what you have a situation in the Lords where you've got these very detailed amendments trying to address the issues. And because of the lack of engagement, you've got this crisis that's been created. Now, what that means is he wants MPs in the next session to vote for the same unsafe, deficient bill, which has no electoral mandate, and force it onto the statute books. Now, there's a lot of complexity in achieving that path, but that's what it would require for the MPs to be blind to the vulnerable.
I think I get the impression, I've got the pleasure of looking at his face as you speak to us, and I can tell you that he's looking forward to answering some of those claims. Can I just put to you, Nikki, first of all, the idea that what's really going on here is a bit of old-fashioned filibustering. There's an attempt, basically, by some people, this is what your opponents would say, to basically put some, sand in the eyes to slow this thing down until it runs out of time in May, in the hope that, because if you put more delays in place, essentially this reform's not going to happen. Isn't that what's really going on?
So first, you've got to start with the process. This is going by the private members' bill process never designed for complex bills of this nature and ones that are this unsafe. Secondly, the Lord is moving at about the same pace as the Commons. They've got through about 300 amendments so far. They're spending about 7 minutes on each amendment, and they're doing the best to patch these holes. They're responding to external concerns. This bill managed to provoke 2 royal colleges, psychiatrists and physicians, from 4 years of neutrality out to saying that this bill, while they're neutral on principle, this bill is unsafe. This bill is dangerous for the vulnerable and people will be failed. So you've got a situation where Lord Falconer wants the Lords as a scrutinising chamber to stop doing the work and just wave it through. And it's a lot of, I think it's very easy for proponents to take it up into this binary. It's Lords versus Commons versus, is this bill safe? And the work has not been done.
OK. Nikki da Costa, thank you very much indeed. Lord Falconer, there's quite a bit to put to you. Whether it's unsafe, deficient and has no mandate, we've actually discussed before. But there's actually quite a lot of personal stuff about you in there, which is that you've not turned up, you've not engaged, and what you're trying to do is defy the will of lots and lots of people who are concerned about the ethics of this bill.
I mean, not turned up seems a little bit extreme. I'm the only person. I've turned up every day. I'm the only person who's been there every day. As far as the engaged, I'm engaged repeatedly, right from the process when it started. I invited peers to come and see me. I spoke to peers. I have given detailed indications of the changes I'm going to make. The suggestion that I haven't engaged is completely wrong. What is going on here is a minority are engaged in a filibuster. The Lords themselves have recognised that by passing a motion on the 8th of January saying, we want more time, we want this finished. And perhaps the strongest indication of that is that we've been doing 7 days of committee so far. It's about 5 hours a day, over 35 hours, and we haven't got through section 1 yet. If there are defects in this bill, and I accept it can be improved, but I don't think it's a defective bill, then make the changes. If I resist the changes, then vote them through. The Lord's is a sensible place. What the Lord's does well is look at things and change them if they're wrong. Stop all this smoke and mirrors that we got from Nikki da Costa there and focus on making the bill better. If you say that's what's wrong with it.
Why do you believe this requires an unprecedented use of the Parliament Act?
Because what's happening is the Commons, after detailed scrutiny, have decided there should be this major change. The Lords, because of this minority filibustering, will not engage in detail. We haven't even got to the bit where we vote changes yet because we haven't even got past Section 1 yet. The Constitution says if the Commons passes something and the Lords block it, which is what's happening, then the way the Commons, who are elected, get their way is if they pass it again, second time, in the same form, then it gets through without the Lords. Don't do that, I'm saying to the Lords. If you want to make changes to make it better, start engaging with the detail. The majority are trying to do that.
That's you're a lawyer by training. That's a strict interpretation of the Constitution. Doesn't it rather undermine the Lords, though, if you were to use the Parliament Act to do away with the objections that people like Nikki da Costa have?
It does undermine the Lords if the Lords will not engage in the process.
But they say you're not engaging.
But they've got to engage. We've got to be faster than Section 1, and they can improve this bill. I recognise that, and I've indicated a whole range of areas where I will accept changes. But if the Lords will just not move on, then they can't do their work. And what's made the Lords successful in a number of respects is because they do good scrutiny. And my experience, this is pretty unprecedented for the Lords not properly to engage in it.
Do you think they're acting cynically rather than in good faith?
I think there are a lot of people, often with religious motives, which I respect, who do not want to see this bill. Ultimately, somebody's got to decide whether we're going to make this change. And it can't be the Lords, it's got to be the elected House of Commons, and they've made a clear decision.
Let me put that to Nikki da Costa. Nikki da Costa, it's got to be the elected Commons in the end.
Absolutely, you get to that stage, but let me give you 5 things that Lord Falconer has confirmed in the last few days of debate. If you're terminally ill but want to end your life because of poverty, you should be helped to do so. If society or loved ones make you feel that you're a burden, it's okay for doctors to help end your life. If you're terminally ill and have Down syndrome or learning disabilities, it's still okay for doctors to proactively raise ending your life. There should be no particular care where a woman is pregnant before providing lethal substance to kill her, and the terminally ill need not be given a real choice or equal right to palliative care. These are major issues, and these ones Lord Falconer will not engage with.
I've engaged with every single one of them. What on earth is she talking about?
I've listened to every hour of that debate, and you batted all those away.
I've disagreed, that's all.
Absolutely, and those are the major...
Isn't that allowed, disagreement?
What you have offered is very minor. It's usually changes to codes of practice, training requirements, and you haven't engaged with the detail. You've said that on the floor of the House from the last 2 Fridays.
But if the position is we disagree, Nikki, then the answer is vote against it and change it. Why?
You don't have the House needs to hear the issues. The House decides.
The House has heard them.
Not Lord Falconer.
Well, the House has heard them, and our listeners have heard them. I think this is democracy in action. You guys can continue this in the House of Lords whenever you like. Lord Falconer and Nikki da Costa, thank you both very much indeed for your time this morning.